Last March, someone broke into the FBI offices in Media, Pennsylvania, stole some records, and mailed copies of them around to several newspapers.
In the corridors of power, where shadows linger and whispers become echoes, one man held the keys to the nation's secrets. J. Edgar Hoover, an enigma wrapped in the cloak of authority. As we embark on this journey, we invite you to peel back the layers of history, revealing the mysteries that shaped a titan of American law enforcement. What secrets lie beneath the veneer of power? What stories remain untold, hidden in the folds of time? In a world where information is power, and power begets secrets, the story of J. Edgar Hoover is a symphony of intrigue, played out on the grand stage of American history. Our journey into the mystery of J. Edgar Hoover begins in the quiet corners of Washington, D.C. Born on January 1, 1895, to Annie Marie Sheitlin and Dickerson Naylor Hoover, young John Edgar would soon embark on a trajectory that would shape the course of American law enforcement. Dickerson Hoover was of English and German ancestry. Hoover's maternal great-uncle, John Hitz, was a Swiss honorary consul general to the United States. Among his family, he was the closest to his mother, who despite being more inclined to instruction, showed great affection towards her son. Hoover was born in a house on the present site of Capitol Hill United Methodist Church, located on Seward Square near Eastern Market in Washington's Capitol Hill neighborhood. A stained glass window in the church is dedicated to him. Hoover did not have a birth certificate filed upon his birth, although it was required in 1895 in Washington. Two of his siblings did have certificates, but Hoover's was not filed until 1938 when he was 43. From an early age, Hoover exhibited an insatiable curiosity and a keen intellect. Raised in a disciplined household, he thrived academically, laying the foundation for a future marked by ambition and dedication. A stellar student, Hoover excelled in both academics and extracurricular pursuits. His commitment to discipline and order became evident in his involvement in various school organizations and leadership roles. Hoover lived his entire life in Washington, D.C. He attended Central High School, where he sang in the school choir, participated in the Reserve Officers Training Corps program, and competed on the debate team. Hoover stuttered as a boy, which he later learned to manage by teaching himself to talk quickly, a style that he carried through his adult career. He eventually spoke with such ferocious speed that stenographers had a hard time following him. Even as a young boy, Hoover displayed an exceptional sense of responsibility. It was clear that he held a vision for his future, one that involved serving his country in a significant way. Hoover's journey continued to Georgetown University, where he pursued a degree in law. Where he was a member of the Alpha Nu chapter of the Kappa Alpha Order, a Southern fraternity that was born out of a desire to carry on the legacy of the incomparable flower of Southern knighthood after the defeat of the Confederacy in 1865. Some prominent Kappa Alpha alumni, who had an influence on Hoover's future beliefs, included author Thomas Dixon and John Temple Graves. Hoover graduated with a Master of Laws in 1917 from the same university. While a law student, Hoover became interested in the career of Anthony Comstock, the New York City U.S. Postal Inspector, who waged prolonged campaigns against fraud, vice, and birth control. During these formative years, he immersed himself in the study of justice and governance, laying the groundwork for his future in law enforcement. In 1917, the United States entered World War I, and Hoover's path took an unexpected turn. He joined the War Emergency Division of the U.S. Department of Justice, marking the beginning of his long and storied career in public service. Assigned to the Alien Enemy Bureau, Hoover demonstrated a remarkable ability to organize and analyze information. His dedication caught the attention of his superiors, setting the stage for his ascent through the ranks. As we delve into J. Edgar Hoover's early years, we glimpse the seeds of a man destined for greatness and controversy. Little did the world know, this young Washingtonian would go on to shape the Federal Bureau of Investigation and become one of the most influential figures in American history. As the Roaring Twenties gave way to the tumultuous 30s, the United States was grappling with a rising tide of crime and lawlessness. In 1924, against this backdrop, a young J. Edgar Hoover was appointed as the head of the Bureau of Investigation, a precursor to the Federal Bureau of Investigation we know today. Hoover's vision was to transform the Bureau into a modern, professional law enforcement agency. He implemented rigorous training programs, established a fingerprint database, and introduced scientific methods to crime detection. Hoover's vision was to transform the Bureau into a modern, professional law enforcement agency. He implemented rigorous training programs, established a fingerprint database, and introduced scientific methods to crime detection. Under Hoover's leadership, the Bureau evolved and expanded its jurisdiction. In 1935, it officially became the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and Hoover, at the age of 40, was appointed as its first official director. Hoover's leadership marked a turning point for the Bureau. He emphasized the importance of intelligence gathering and centralized the FBI's power, creating an institution that would become synonymous with law and order. Hoover's charisma and determination endeared him to the American public. He became a public figure, actively promoting the FBI as an essential guardian of national security. During this period, the FBI faced significant challenges, from the gangster era of Al Capone to the threat of espionage during World War II. Hoover's leadership and the FBI's investigative prowess became legendary. The FBI's reputation grew as it tackled high-profile cases, from the Lindbergh kidnapping to bringing down notorious criminals. Hoover's vision had turned the Bureau into an iconic institution, but it also raised questions about the extent of its power. Hoover was sometimes unpredictable in his leadership. He frequently fired Bureau agents, singling out those he thought looked stupid like truck drivers, or whom he considered pinheads. He also relocated agents who had displeased him to career-ending assignments and locations. Melvin Purvis was a prime example. Purvis was one of the most effective agents in capturing and breaking up 1930s gangs, and it is alleged that Hoover maneuvered him out of the Bureau because he was envious of the substantial public recognition Purvis received. As the FBI continued to evolve, so did J. Edgar Hoover's influence. His legacy as a law enforcement pioneer and a controversial figure intertwined, shaping the Bureau and the nation for decades to come. As the United States emerged victorious from World War II, a new threat loomed on the horizon, the specter of communism. The Cold War tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union gave rise to an era known as the Red Scare. Senator Joseph McCarthy spearheaded the anti-communist crusade, but it was J. Edgar Hoover's FBI that played a pivotal role in the investigations and the broader effort to root out perceived subversive elements. Under Hoover's leadership, the FBI expanded its reach, investigating not only suspected spies but also individuals and organizations deemed to have communist sympathies. Hoover's testimony before Congress fueled the fear, painting a picture of a nation under siege from within. The Red Scare was marked by arrests, trials, and the blacklisting of individuals in various sectors, including Hollywood, government, and academia. Allegations flew, often with little concrete evidence, as careers were ruined and lives upended in the name of national security. The Red Scare left an indelible mark on American society, shaping the political landscape and instilling a climate of fear and suspicion. But as the dust settled, questions arose about the methods employed by Hoover's FBI and the erosion of civil liberties in the pursuit of a perceived enemy. While J. Edgar Hoover was known as a powerful figure in the public eye, his personal life was shrouded in secrecy, leaving room for speculation and unanswered questions. Hoover lived with his mother, Annie Hoover, for much of his life. Their close relationship fueled speculation and raised eyebrows among contemporaries. The historians John Stuart Cox and Athan G. Theoharis speculated that Clyde Tolson, who became an assistant director to Hoover in his mid-40s and became his primary heir, had a sexual relationship with Hoover until the latter's death. Hoover reportedly hunted down and threatened anyone who made insinuations about his sexuality. Though private, Hoover had close relationships with key individuals, including his longtime secretary Helen Gandy and associate director Clyde Tolson. The nature of these relationships has been a subject of speculation and debate. Hoover described Tolson as his alter ego. The men worked closely together during the day and, both single, frequently took meals, went to nightclubs, and vacationed together. This closeness between the two men is often cited as evidence that they were lovers. Some FBI employees who knew them, such as Mark Felt, say the relationship was brotherly. However, former FBI Executive Assistant Director Mike Mason suggested that some of Hoover's colleagues denied that he had a sexual relationship with Tolson in an effort to protect Hoover's image. The relationship between Hoover and Tolson has been a subject of ongoing speculation. While some insist it was purely professional, others suggest a deeper, more personal connection. Even in death, the mystery surrounding J. Edgar Hoover's private life persists, leaving a legacy of intrigue and unanswered questions that continue to captivate historians and researchers. While J. Edgar Hoover's FBI was celebrated for its successes, it was not without controversy. At the heart of the intrigue were Hoover's extensive surveillance programs and a shadowy network of information gathering. The Bureau's surveillance extended to political figures, civil rights activists, and even celebrities, as Hoover sought to maintain control and influence over various aspects of American society. With a vast archive of sensitive information, Hoover was not afraid to use blackmail as a means to manipulate individuals and institutions. Numerous reports surfaced of Hoover using compromising information to coerce politicians, public figures, and even his own agents into compliance. Decades later, declassified documents shed light on the extent of Hoover's surveillance apparatus. Still, much remains shrouded in secrecy, leaving us to ponder the full scope of his actions. The legacy of Hoover's surveillance and blackmail tactics continues to reverberate in discussions about the balance between national security and individual privacy. One of his biographers, Kenneth Ackerman, wrote that the allegation that Hoover's secret files kept presidents from firing him is a myth. However, Richard Nixon was recorded in 1971 as stating that one of the reasons he would not fire Hoover was that he was afraid of Hoover's reprisals against him. Similarly, Presidents Harry Truman and John F. Kennedy considered dismissing Hoover as FBI director, but ultimately concluded that the political cost of doing so would be too great. In 1964, Hoover's FBI investigated Jack Valenti, a special assistant and confidant of President Lyndon Johnson, married to Johnson's personal secretary, but who allegedly maintained gay relationship with a commercial photographer friend. Hoover personally directed the FBI investigation of the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. In 1964, just days before Hoover testified in the earliest stages of the Warren Commission hearings, President Lyndon B. Johnson waived the then mandatory U.S. government service retirement age of 70, allowing Hoover to remain the FBI director for an indefinite period of time. The House Select Committee on Assassinations issued a report in 1979 critical of the performance by the FBI, the Warren Commission, and other agencies. The report criticized the FBI's, Hoover's, reluctance to investigate thoroughly the possibility of a conspiracy to assassinate the president. When Richard Nixon took office in January 1969, Hoover had just turned 74. There was a growing sentiment in Washington, D.C., that the aging FBI chief should retire, but Hoover's power and friends in Congress remained too strong for him to be forced to do so. Hoover remained director of the FBI until he died of a heart attack in his Washington home, on May 2, 1972, whereupon operational command of the Bureau was passed on to Associate Director Clyde Tolson. On May 3, 1972, Nixon appointed L. Patrick Gray, a Justice Department official with no FBI experience, as acting director of the FBI, with W. Mark Felt becoming Associate Director. Hoover's body lay in state in the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol, where Chief Justice Warren Burger eulogized him. Up to that time, Hoover was the only civil servant to have lain in state, according to the New York Daily News. At the time, the New York Times observed that this was an honor accorded to only 21 persons before, of whom 8 were presidents or former presidents. President Nixon delivered another eulogy at the funeral service in the National Presbyterian Church, and called Hoover one of the giants, whose long life brimmed over with magnificent achievement and dedicated service to this country which he loved so well. Hoover was buried in the Congressional Cemetery in Washington, D.C., next to the graves of his parents and a sister who had died in infancy. Public reactions to Hoover's death were mixed. Some mourned the loss of a dedicated public servant, while others saw it as an opportunity for a new era in American law enforcement. Hoover's legacy lives on in the FBI and the modern American law enforcement system. His vision shaped the Bureau into what it is today, but it also left a legacy of controversy and questions. However, even in death, Hoover's legacy is shrouded in unanswered questions. Decades after his passing, classified documents and files related to Hoover's activities remain inaccessible, leaving historians and the public in the dark. What lies hidden in those classified files? What secrets about Hoover's personal and professional life have yet to be revealed? As we reflect on J. Edgar Hoover's legacy, we are left with a tapestry of achievements and controversies, a complex portrait of a man whose impact continues to be felt, and whose secrets continue to intrigue and elude us. As we delve into the enigma that was J. Edgar Hoover, we are left with a portrait painted in shades of secrecy, power, and complexity. His influence, both tangible and intangible, is woven into the very fabric of our nation's history. The legacy of J. Edgar Hoover is a tapestry of intrigue, leaving us with unanswered questions and untold stories. In the pursuit of justice, he walked a fine line between protector and antagonist, leaving behind a legacy that echoes through the corridors of time. As we bid farewell to this chapter in history, let us not forget the lessons embedded in the shadows of Hoover's legacy, a reminder that the pursuit of justice must navigate the delicate balance between power and accountability.